What's up? This is E.J. Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! All right, what's up? This is E.J. Stewart. You're watching 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy E.J. Stewart, where I do 2 live stream shows per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and we have a big one coming up for you tonight. We had an awesome guest this morning with my guy CP the Franchise coming on to talk Knicks stuff. Major shout out to him and thank you for coming on and talking about the Knicks in terms of their upcoming playoff push, their pressure on Mike Brown, and the looming threat that is the Detroit Pistons. So if you want to catch everything we talked about this morning, that not only the full episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights is up, but also the interview I did with CP the Franchise is also up on my YouTube channel. Again, New Generation Media is where we're streaming live on YouTube. Also, streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. And streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ is where you'll find me on Instagram. So, big shout out to CP the Franchise. He did his thing in the morning and in the evening. We got another big guest I'm excited about. Antwan Staley, Jets reporter, New York Daily Post, joins me live here on 40 Days and 40 Nights in a little more than 30 minutes to talk about what has become a big day for the New York Jets, because you had the franchise tag being given to Breece Hall, and then you had Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray being cut by the Arizona Cardinals. That will be made official when the new league year starts next week. But Kyler Murray, his time with the Arizona Cardinals is over. And now with him being a quarterback that will be on the market, and the Jets are definitely in the market for a QB, they are seen as one of the teams that could be a landing spot for the former #1 overall pick. So Antwan Staley, join me live to talk all about everything happening with the New York Jets. That's going to be a ton of fun. We also got a lot to get to on this show because a lot is happening out here, man. Not only did you have, obviously, the Kyler Murray and the franchise tag coming up. This is a big night in the NBA. And it's a big night in a way that warms my heart as a 90s baby. Because, yes, you got a pretty good matchup happening on NBC Peacock where you got your Spurs up against the Philadelphia 76ers. Spurs, of course, one of the best young teams in the NBA, certainly a title contender. Sixers without Joel Embiid, but nonetheless, a good, fun, exciting team to watch with Tyrese Maxey and VJ Escombe, that lightning quick backcourt that they have. The game is solid enough. But some of you may say, okay, NBA regular season, I don't care, I'm moving on. Well, I'm going to make the case that you shouldn't move on tonight, because there's a special broadcast happening tonight for this game. NBC is doing a throwback show, a throwback broadcast for this game, meaning you're going to be having a lot of the old field you had in the 90s when it was a Sunday afternoon and Michael Jordan was lacing them up to go up against the New York Knicks or the Indiana Pacers and Reggie Miller, and you had Hannah Storm doing the halftime. You had Bob Costas on the call. Well, good news. No, there's no Michael Jordan or Reggie Miller, but you will have Hannah Storm doing the pregame, halftime, and postgame. You'll have Bob Costas on the play call. So I think this is super neat. I'm really excited about this. I'll give you guys more details about it as we get a little closer. I believe the pregame show starts at 7 o'clock, and the game starts at 8 o'clock. So I'm really excited about that. And then we got a lot of news happening on the ancillary things we talk about in New Generation Media. Because, of course, with 40 Days and 40 Nights, this is, as I say, a sports-centered show. Not Sports Center, but sports-centered. And New York, inspired. But there's some stuff happening in the movie world that's important. And we mentioned it earlier this week. We mentioned it last week. The idea that Paramount was closing in and now the deal is done. They will now own Warner Brothers Discovery. So the entire library that and the entire ecosystem that Warner Discovery currently owns, HBO, DC Films, Food Network, HGTV, all that stuff now will be heading over to Paramount. We're already getting word that HBO Max will once again take a second death. If you guys remember the first death when HBO Max became Max, now it's HBO Max again. Now it's going to be formed into Paramount Plus eventually. So all that's happening on the business side. On the side that I care the most about, the comic book universe side, the first real definitive prediction and rumor from someone who is plugged into the business and the industry about a murky future for James Gunn, who is the head of DC Studios. He's a co-CEO with Peter Safran. He handles the creative. And one insider thinks that we could be seeing the final days of James Gunn as head of DC Studios because of this deal that happened between Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Very fascinating stuff coming out of that whole big shebang that happened with that huge deal that came out. And plus, we're getting into wrestling. We talked a little bit earlier today about what went on what I thought was another phenomenal promo battle between Roman Reigns and CM Punk. Reigns, I thought, after putting on an awesome promo the first time a couple weeks ago, I thought put on even a better promo on Monday Night Raw. And then CM Punk this time didn't let him have the final word. He came with more heat and more personal beef. And this feud is just money right now. I cannot get enough of everything happening with CM Punk and Roman Reigns. But these other people are on contract too. Or as the saying goes, these other people are on scholarship too. And there are people still wanting to fight for their spot and fight for their moment at WrestleMania. And we're starting to wonder if things are starting to cross a line with one of the main championship matches for WrestleMania. Jade Cargill is WWE champion. We now know she'll be facing Rhea Ripley because Rhea Ripley won the Elimination Chamber. They took to social media in what is the beginning of this program, and it seemed to go sideways in a way that I don't know if WWE liked, and we seem to be getting conflicting reports of whether or not this was supposed to go the way it did. So we'll break down whether it's a shoot or a work with what's going down between WWE Women's Champion Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley. So a lot to do on this show. Apologies for some of the technical slow start. There was the hard drive situation. I tell you, I think my hard drive, my computer is like, this better be the last days we're doing this, because my hard drive didn't want to connect or not show up. So that's one of the reasons why we had a false start. So I'm giving some people time to get in. Hopefully you guys are in. We're going to be rocking though. We're going to be all good to go. Again, Antwan Staley comes up shortly on 40 Days and 40 Nights. That's going to be a ton of fun. So before we get to them, let's set up the table for what's happening in the NFL. And we begin with Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray, he is officially going to be moving on from the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals could not find a trade offer. We had the report, I believe it was yesterday, that they were saying that essentially, unless something changes at the last minute, the Cardinals are resigned to the fact they will probably have to waive Kyler Murray in order to get him off the team, and they were committed to getting him off the team. Now they have informed Kyler Murray that that is going to happen, and they're going to be moving forward with a new quarterback next year, which means Kyler Murray will be a free agent come next week. Kyler Murray is going to be guaranteed $36.8 million as part of this release. The Cardinals will absorb a massive cap hit to part ways with him. But because he will get all that guaranteed money, the $37 million that's coming to him, he will now likely be in the market for a veteran minimum contract, which is going to be enticing for some teams, because we had this situation happen with Russell Wilson a couple years ago when he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he was in Denver. He had the whole, this is almost word for word, bar for bar, what happened with the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was playing for the Broncos. They reached the point where they didn't want him to get injured and have to give him a roster bonus and money that would have been guaranteed. So they said, you're quote unquote injured or benched or whatever. You go away. And Russell Wilson's like, but I'm fine. No, we're not. You're not playing another second because we don't want you to get hurt and have to owe you money. Derek Carr also dealt with this as well, playing for the Raiders. So this is the same deal. Kyler Murray was playing this season. He had what seemed like a legitimate foot injury, but not something that should have ended his season. And he went on IR. The team was saying, we're going to see what Jacoby Brissett's got. And they never considered going back to Kyler Murray because they had decided that they were done with Kyler Murray moving forward. So Murray now, just like Wilson, he will now become a free agent And because he has all this guaranteed money that's coming to him, he will likely, according to Ian Rappaport, sign with some other team on a veterans minimum, just like Russell Wilson did after he was cut from the Denver Broncos. Took in about 40 plus million guaranteed from the Broncos, and then signed for a 1 year, 1 million kind of deal with the Steelers. That didn't go quite great, right? He only lasted a year there. Justin Fields seemed to play him to a standstill to start the season, even though they eventually did go to Russell Wilson. They, of course, lost all those games towards the end of the season and were eliminated immediately in the playoffs and were not a threat at all. So that didn't go so great, but that's not like it cost the Steelers anything because Russell Wilson was playing on a $1 million salary. That is essentially what's going to happen with Kyler Murray next year. So when you look at it from the standpoint of what happens next for Murray, we'll tackle that before we get to the Cardinals. You're talking about a guy who's now 28 years old, who I went through his stats before, has been a little injury prone in the last 3 or 4 years. This year, he had a foot injury that made him miss time. He shouldn't have been out for the whole season. He could have come back probably, but he was out for a considerable amount of time. He's had other injuries and nicks and knacks that have not allowed him to play a full season at quarterback. He is someone who has had questions about his character, questions about his commitment to the game and love for the game, his commitment to being great, his commitment to being a good leader. Those are things that have been legitimate questions about Kyler Murray. At the same time, he is someone that was a former number 1 pick in the draft. He is someone that has been a Pro Bowler. He is someone that is at times looked like a star player, a guy at times who has looked like a guy who some people thought could be an MVP candidate. So getting that kind of guy for $1 million, which is essentially what's going to cost somebody to sign him, it's going to entice teams because there are teams that are going to be desperate for talent at quarterback, and there's not a lot in the draft to be had. So Kyler Murray will have his whole bed of suitors that will want to make a case for why he should come and play for them. I think when you look at the teams that have been initially described, and they're kind of continuing to be announced as the teams that are being considered as Kyler Murray contenders. You're looking at the New York Jets. You're looking at the Minnesota Vikings, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins. Those are some of the teams that are being discussed as potential fits for Kyler Murray now that he's going to be a free agent. If I was Kyler Murray, just like I told Kirk Cousins, the decision is a no-brainer. If I'm Kyler Murray, I'm going to Minnesota. I think any quarterback that becomes available and you have an opportunity to play in Minnesota, that's where I'm going. Now, you may say, EJ, well, if he goes to Minnesota, like 9 is still there. And it doesn't seem like they like 9, but he is still there. He was their first-round pick. So, in theory, like, who's to say that he ever plays? Who's to say he doesn't go to Arizona? J.J. McCarthy has a good offseason program, comes in, acts like he's, knows what's going on and that he's gotten his act together, and now all of a sudden he actually does look at franchise quarterback. Now Kyler Murray is going to be wasting a year playing on a team where they already have a starting quarterback. All those things are possible. I just would take my chances because I think the situation in terms of Minnesota with everything else they have, the wide receiver room, the offensive line, they've kind of been okay. They've kind of made some adjustments to try to fix it. It's been up and down, but they certainly have a functional offensive line, I think. The offensive coach in Kevin O'Connell, who's a brilliant offensive play caller. A defense that may lose Jonathan Grenard, which is a big deal. It's something that got lost in the sauce today. Grenard may need to be traded because he may be a cap casualty. The Vikings they're so over the cap at this point. They like him. They don't want to move on, but he's coming off a little bit of an injury-plagued year, and they may need to move on. So the defense may take a slight hit, but I would expect the defense to still be top-notch next year with Brian Flores still calling the defense. They have everything on a silver platter to go and compete immediately. We saw Sam Darnold play for the Minnesota Vikings last year and won 14 games and was playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Is that a thing of them or is it a thing of him? Now, a lot of people thought, well, this shows how good the Vikings are, but then Sam Darnold did go to another team, win 14 games again, and then win a Super Bowl. So I don't know if that changes people's disposition on how good are the Vikings actually, but I still see Justin Jefferson, I still see Jordan Addison, and I still see a second year who's going to be in his third year quarterback who I just think can't play. That's how I assess him. I didn't love J.J. McCarthy coming out of the draft. I thought that he was a project. I thought he needed a year to sit. He got a year to sit, though it was through injury, so I don't know how much you learn when you're injured. So he did get a year to sit, and then he went out there and played, and he looked like a rookie in the capital R word of rookie, right? I mean, he looked really raw, really ragged for a team that seemed like if they had a functional quarterback, they could have been really good this past season. If I'm Kyler Murray, I get to that team with those weapons, playing in a dome. I know you got to play some cold weather games in Chicago and Green Bay, and that's not going to be fun, and you'll probably lose those games if you're Kyler Murray. But everything else is set up well for him to go out there and have a really good year. And if he doesn't get re-signed by the Vikings, he can maybe cash in somewhere else if he puts up big numbers. So that's where I would go if I was him. If you ask me where I think he's going to go, I think he's going to go to the Jets. I think that Woody Johnson wants him. I think Woody Johnson likes stars. I think Woody Johnson likes names. And Kyler Murray is definitely a name, and he has been a star. And the Jets are in a position where you obviously won't be able to draft a franchise quarterback near the top of this draft. You could be taking a flyer on someone like Ty Simpson, who I've told you I think he's a second-round guy. I think there are certainly some traits that suggest that maybe he could be really good, but he's not someone that's going to physically wow you, so he's not someone who just sit from a distance and say, yep, that's a definite NFL star quarterback in the future. You just don't know with him. And that's just the reality of where he's at, in my opinion, in terms of his development. I think that's the opinion of a lot of NFL teams, because it's not a consensus whether or not he's even a first-round pick. So I think Woody Johnson can say, listen, if our guy's not here, we have a guy who's a star player. We're starving for a competitive Jets season that is not over by, Halloween or over by, Columbus Day. We need to find somebody that can come in and infuse some life and maybe get the most out of some of these assets that we have on this team, right? We like this offensive line and the youth that they have and the first-round picks that have been spent on offensive linemen like Fashanu and Membu. We signed Garrett Wilson to a very lucrative contract for a wide receiver for a team that doesn't have a quarterback. We'll talk about Breece Hall in a second, but we just gave him a flat franchise tag, and the plan is to try to sign him long-term. Here is a quarterback that's a former Pro Bowler that has thrown for almost 4,000 yards at multiple parts of his career. That's a dual threat. Why not bring him in? Like I said before, my trepidation with anything involving Kyler Murray is I wonder if he is someone that we're starting to see the physical tools diminish as he gets older and more injured. When he came into the NFL, the guy was a little lightning rod. Like, he was so small, but this guy was flying around all over the field. He was so fast. He was doing video game type stuff. He was a truly one of the exciting players to watch in the NFL because he played such it seemed like chaotic but very exciting brand of football. But he was able to do that because of how athletic he was. He has physical limitations because he is 5'10". So seeing above the line is not something he can do. Oftentimes, seeing guys that are open and playing with pace and playing with timing is not necessarily something you can do with a guy who's so short, because he just might not see guys open. So the reality is, I think you see a lot of Kyler Murray saying, okay, I'm going to drop back, and as soon as I see any kind of rush or I don't find my first read, I'm just going to roll out or get out of the pocket so I can actually see the field. Sometimes the first time Kyler Murray's actually, I think, seeing open receivers is when he breaks the pocket. When you're athletic as he was and you run a 4.4 or 4.3, whatever he ran, like, you can do that and have some success because he was so athletic. He is 28 years old. He's not ancient, but he is getting older, and he has had injury. He just had a foot injury last year. So those are some things that I think would concern me about, A, how good is he really? Is there any chance you're going to catch that lightning in a bottle that he had earlier in his career? That's number one. Number two, I mentioned that in order to turn the Jets around, it's going to take a special group of individuals. A group of individuals who knows how tough it is, that will be able to put up with a lot of crap, and who have a level of moxie and a true sense of knowing what it takes to fight through adversity, to handle everything that comes with being a New York Jet. The organization, in many ways, gets in their own way. You're stepping on banana peels and rakes left and right. And you, as a leader of the team, and you, as a quarterback, have to find a way to maneuver your team and your organization and your teammates around all of that. Kyler Murray just went from another dumpster fire in Arizona that is not as notable for their screw-ups like the Jets, but screw up just as much, if not more. The Cardinals have routinely been one of the worst organizations in the NFL since their existence. And they've been around a lot longer than the New York Jets. So I saw him struggle mightily with that role. He didn't seem to be fit for the face of the franchise role, the this is my show and I'm going to lead this team out of poverty role. That role seemed to be not suited for him. We know about the homework clause in his contract, where they try to put in a clause to say, we need to make sure you're spending X amount of time on your iPad that has your playbook and all your reads in it, so that to know that you're actually working on preparing every week and not playing video games all the time. No joke. This is a real thing that was put into his contract. I don't want to diss a guy that loves playing video games. I love video games. But that seems pretty extreme and a little concerning that you felt like you had to put in his contract that in order for him to get paid, he had to read the playbook. That's what happened. And then there's been plenty of rumors and murmurs and reports about Kyler Murray's lack of a relationship and bond with coaches, lack of a relationship and bond with teammates. He seems to be kind of a loner. We've seen him on Hard Knocks, the NFC West division. Or not, that wasn't the NFC West division. That was actually the actual Arizona Cardinals Hard Knocks. This was an in-season Hard Knocks where we kind of got to see some of the stuff that we kind of saw from the sidelines and saw from like watching the broadcast and didn't know it was real. And you realize it kind of was real. This kind of like cantankerous attitude he has on the sidelines, not really being able to rally his teammates in a way that is believable. Those things were prevalent watching Hard Knocks that season as the Cardinal season fell apart. That doesn't sound like a good New York Jet to me. You want to say, hey, let's send him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and yes, he has all these issues, but we put him in the Steeler black and gold. We put him in the community. We put him around the Steeler aura, and this guy will learn how to be a good leader and a good teammate. There are some signs that suggest that doesn't actually work. It doesn't seem to work for any diva receivers. It did work for Aaron Rodgers. He came there. He was a model citizen, seemed to be a good leader and a great teammate by all accounts, and he caused no distractions. So it seems to be a mixed bag. But I would think that would make more sense than a fit with the New York Jets. The Vikings, I guess, are kind of in the middle. I wouldn't consider them a model franchise per se, but I wouldn't consider them a dumpster fire at all, not even close. And they do have definitely strong leadership when it comes to their head coach. Now, they don't have a president. They fired Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, so there's a hole there. And I would wonder who's calling the shots in Minnesota to make this kind of call. But to me, if I'm the Vikings, I don't love this player. Like I said it a bunch. I said it yesterday. I said it last week. I don't love this guy. I'm not sure if he's ever going to really get it. I'm not sure if this is going to be the sport for him. I still wonder if this goes poorly this year, if he picks up a baseball bat. I'm being 100% real. But I think if you're the Vikings, you have to get somebody. And when it comes to just pure talent, of the quarterbacks that are going to be available, Kyler Murray, maybe Tua Tagovailoa joins him. We'll see. It's a lot of money guaranteed for Tua to be cut. Murray, Tua, Kirk Cousins, Malik Willis, all of those guys. Those are the free agents. We don't know who's going to be traded, right? I mean, well, Tua is we don't know. He may get traded, but most of those guys I named are free agents. Of those guys, Kyler is the most talented on paper. He's accomplished the most recently, or he's not super old like Kirk Cousins. So from that standpoint, for the Vikings, I would understand bringing him in, because this could be actually your guy that you move on from J.J. McCarthy from, which is something they're going to have to seriously consider. Because they're also one of those teams that's kind of too good to tank. So in a draft that's going to be littered with quarterbacks, they may have bites at the apple, even being a team drafting in the 20s or late teens, but it's not going to be your Arch Mannings, or it's not going to be one of these top end guys. It's going to be your third, fourth, or fifth quarterback in this upcoming draft, and that is how they landed on 9. That's how they landed on J.J. McCarthy, was not having a top pick, being left with him and Bo Nix, and they chose wrong. They chose the wrong guy. Bo Nix has proven to be a much better quarterback. So if you're the Vikings, you may say, we don't want to land where we were before, where we screwed up. We had a guy who was simply kind of competition for a rookie and insurance, and he turned out to be really good, and then we screwed it up and just let him walk. Let's bring in a guy who has a chance to be good, who has had success in the NFL, and let's see how he does. And he definitely, I think he would beat J.J. McCarthy out in a QB battle. I don't think there's any way McCarthy, unless McCarthy has grown a ton since his first year in the NFL, playing for the first time last year in his second season, that's certainly possible. I'm just very down on him. He did not look like, I'm thinking about like watching the other young quarterbacks, even the rookies like Jackson Dart. Like Jackson Dart didn't look like J.J. McCarthy did this year, not even close. I thought he was extremely underwhelming. So if you're the Vikings, I get it. To me, I would still probably lean Kirk Cousins simply because he knows the offense, he knows the system, and I think he would go there and perform. But I think for Minnesota, they're coming to the conclusion potentially that if we don't get another crack at getting a young rookie quarterback, we got this guy coming in for $1 million, and he's a former number one pick. With our offense, our system, our scheme, we got to at least see this through and see if he's got an opportunity. I get it. I would lean Cousins, but I totally get it. I don't think the Vikings make sense. I'm curious about the Pittsburgh Steelers because we don't know what's happening with Aaron Rodgers still. It's only March 3rd. It's not crazy time in terms of having to know the future for what they're going to do with their position. I would assume, though, with the quarterback market that's going to shake, and it's not like there are great guys available, but there are guys available, I would hope the Steelers would want to know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play next year by next week, I guess, or whenever the league year starts, or soon, because if he's not, Kyler Murray, I think for them, definitely, for what they want to do, could make sense. Again, if I was the Steelers, I would just say, all right, we're rolling with Mason Rudolph for a year. Oh, no, we lost 13 games. Now we have a top pick, and we're a great organization, and we still have a foundation of a pretty good team. Now we get to draft the top quarterback. Yay, the rebuild worked. That's what I would do if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't seem interested in that. They seem interested in remaining mediocre, remaining in the limbo of being not good enough to compete for a championship, but not bad enough to actually get talented young stars that can actually turn around your team. They seem to love this limbo that they're in. Nothing says limbo like Kyler Murray. That is essentially where the Cardinals lived for most of his career prior to the past 2 seasons when the wheels really fell off towards the end of his time there. Before that, that's where the Cardinals were. They were essentially a 7-8 win team. One year they got to the playoffs, and they blew a division lead down the stretch and got destroyed by the Rams at home, on the road. That is who they've been. They literally are limbo. So if you're the Steelers, he is Mr. Limbo. He works perfect from that standpoint. But if I'm, again, running this team and I'm thinking about what they're going for the future, I would just go with Mason Rudolph if Aaron Rodgers retires. But again, I would think you want to know very soon if Aaron Rodgers is actually going to retire so they can make a decision on whether or not it's Murray or any one of these guys that come available because they want to try to compete. And all these guys I named are all better than Mason Rudolph. I mean, Kirk Cousins, Malik Willis, name a quarterback that's available. Tua Tagovailoa, I'd take all of them over Mason Rudolph. It's 40 days, 40 nights with your boy EJ Stewart. Hit me in the comment section. Whether you're watching on YouTube, New Generation Media, whether you're watching on X, EJ_Stewart, whether you're watching on Instagram, Action EJ. Plenty of people watching me on Instagram. Shout out to Rob DeRay. Shout out to my guy Big Ed, Map65, Michael Pierce, Son of the Bronx, AZ Bull 33, Jesse Flowens, who's always in the Instagram. Shout out to you, Moen79, all those good people that have joined me on the Instagram chat. Shout out to you guys, and let me know. Where do you think Kyler Murray should land? Where would you want to see him? What do you think is the best fit? The best fit to me is Minnesota because it's the best fit for everybody. Now, does Minnesota want him? That's a question. I think he would not be my number one choice if I was the Vikings. But I think they're in a particular situation where they're actually not just trying to say, let's get a stopgap for J.J. McCarthy. They're saying, let's see if we can potentially move on from J.J. McCarthy. Because if you bring in Kirk Cousins, like, even if he beats McCarthy out, he's not your future answer. You're still going to have a question next year or the year after that in terms of how you're figuring out your quarterback situation moving forward. But this was expected news, but now the ball really gets rolling on the QB carousel of what is going to happen with not just Murray, but a bunch of other guys around the league. Both guys that are free agents, guys that are on teams. I didn't mention Anthony Richardson. He's another guy that is potentially going to be out there on the trade market. One guy that I don't think going anywhere is Daniel Jones. He was placed with the transition tag, which essentially makes him a restricted free agent. If nobody offers him a contract, he just plays for $37 million. If someone does, then they have a chance to respond and match the offer to keep him there. I can't imagine he's going anywhere. I would think that the Colts are smart enough to not put themselves in peril to where if somehow he wants to leave or there's some massive offer they're not expecting, that they know what offers would be there for him and they'd be willing to match. And if there's nothing there for him, which perhaps maybe there isn't, considering this tag is on him, that they'll just bring him back for 1 year and another proven year for him, coming off a torn Achilles for the Colts. So the other big news happened today. There was a couple of nuggets that happened today that was big. Some that I didn't include in the show. Trey Hendrickson, he's not going to get franchise tag, so he becomes a free agent. He said his goodbyes to the Bengals fans. It feels like he's been trying to say goodbye to them for 3 years. This guy has been on the trade market and been, rumored to potentially move on from the Bengals. It feels like for the last at least two, maybe 3 seasons. But now it seems like it's official. He's going to go to free agency. The Bengals have no interest in signing him. They're not going to franchise tag him again. They don't have any money to franchise tag him. So that's the end of the road for him. He certainly will be one of the premier pass rushers that will be available and that will have the interests of several of these teams that are going to be win now teams. I do look at the Cowboys after they restructured a bunch of money. They're not done yet. They got to do some more work, but they restructured a bunch of money. I do wonder if they're a team that considers taking a flyer on someone like Trey Hendrickson. The other big news that we had was the fact that Breece Hall is going to be returning to the New York Jets. He's coming back on a franchise tag. So we've heard about the multiple options Darren Muji had at his disposal on how to handle the Breece Hall situation. It was going to be a situation where the Jets had decided they were not going to let him walk to free agency. So it became a situation where we are going to either tag you or we're going to come to a long-term agreement. But you're not going to walk free and just go to free agency to sign with somebody else. So now Breece Hall becomes a member of the Jets. He's going to be on the team and on the roster, while the reporting right now suggests that both sides continue to work on a long-term agreement. Now, the early word was that this would be a transition tag, which is what I think I talked about yesterday. And that changed. According to some of the people that report on the Jets, some of the thought was maybe that suggests that it's actually kind of bad news and suggests that they're much further away on a long-term deal than maybe the optimism that was spoke about on the weekend. That was brought to us, that the Jets were optimistic that they would be able to get a deal done. Put the transition tag on, once again, it's this lower number that is not as high, and it gives all teams opportunity to, again, essentially make that guy a restricted free agent. Now, this tag is non-exclusive, but it's for more money. So I think with the Jets where they're at, this was the right move to keep Breece Hall on the roster. They just don't have a lot of talented players. And the move they made, trading Jermaine Johnson for Tavondre Sweat, they actually ended up saving about $13-14 million with that move. Jermaine Johnson was in for a big payday. He wasn't going to get it from the Jets because it seems like the new coaching staff doesn't think he's good. He didn't want to be there, and they were moving to a 3-4 anyway. Essentially, that's money that was freed up that would then allow them to bring back Breece Hall if you have no deal on a franchise tag without actually losing money. The money that you came in with coming this offseason is the same you're coming into next week with, because Jermaine Johnson is gone. So that actually was some clever work, I think, from Darren Muji there. The question now becomes, what do you do moving forward? Is this going to be a situation where the Jets are going to legitimately negotiate a contract? Does Breece Hall legitimately want to remain a New York Jet and negotiate a deal to get his money to remain with the Jets? This is someone that has been, as my good friend Greg Giannotti said on The Fan, he's been passive-aggressive and aggressive about his frustrations with the New York Jets at times. I'm surprised that he is even interested in working on a long-term deal. But this is a little bit of a pause in the action in terms of whether or not that deal happens, because now the Jets don't necessarily have any pressure or any motivation to make something happen initially. He's going to be on the team. So there's so much to discuss what was going on with Breece Hall, what's going on with Kyler Murray potentially, what's going on with the NFL draft. And I'm really excited for this next guest. You've seen his work in the Daily News. He covers the New York Jets. He does a phenomenal job covering the New York Jets, and he's done it for a while. I got to give a big shout out. And 40 days and 40 nights, hello to Antwan Staley. Antwan, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to finally chat with you. Obviously, we've been social media back and forth throughout the years, so it's good to have you here on my live stream 40 days and 40 nights, and I wanted to bring you on and talk Jets because this was a pretty eventful day. Not only do you have the kind of not final decision, but at least the decision for now on Breece Hall, where he is on the franchise tag, and then you also had Kyler Murray coming available via free agency. And that's going to happen next week when the new league year starts. I want to stay on Breece Hall first. What is your, I guess, feeling regarding the Jets' chances of actually signing him long term? Is this actual reality for the Jets, or is this something where there's a more likelihood that he's going to play on this tag?
Yeah, I think they're trying to work through that. Like they're still trying to work through like just some money issues and things like that too. But I think both sides are interested there. I know Breece has been frustrated at times, just basically with his lack of touches at times, also the lack of winning that is going on with the Jets too. And how could you not be, especially coming off 3 or 14 seasons? But yeah, I think he's interested in staying there. They want to reward him. They want to pay him a lot of money, and quite frankly, they have so many holes on both sides of the ball, especially particular offense. He's going to be used a lot, especially in this offense too. So I think that's one benefit to him coming back to the Jets too as well. I mean, if they can't work on something long term, then obviously he will play on the tag there. But if that is the case, then I wouldn't expect him to report for OTAs or any of that until probably like training camp time.
Interesting. So how close were the Jets to potentially trading him? There was a lot of conversation because of some of the things he posted on social media and because of some of the comments he made in press gaggles after these games where it seemed it could be kind of wishy-washy. Was he close to potentially being on another team, or was it this the Jets' plan all along to tag him and to try to keep him around long term?
Well, the Chiefs were interested. The Chiefs wanted to trade for him, and then they didn't want to come off a day 3 pick. That's basically what it was. And the Jets wanted more compensation for him. And obviously, Kansas City's not going to give up a whole lot for a guy that's going to be an impending free agent anyway. And especially considering they're going to have to pay him, they would have to shot him to an extension too. So, yeah, it came close. But, the fact of the matter is the Jets didn't want to necessarily totally just give up on their offense totally, because Garrett Wilson was obviously dealing with some things too. And they would have had no chance to move the ball without Breece Hall too. So it makes a lot of sense for them, to keep him there. So yeah, they came close, but ultimately they thought, one, they'd be able to sign him to a long-term deal. So why not just keep him and then try to work out something there? And two, they didn't feel like the Kansas City Chiefs gave up enough compensation for him. So ultimately he ended up staying a Jet.
Antwan Staley joins me live here for 40 days and 40 nights, the Jets reporter talking Jets ball. I want to talk about this quarterback situation. So Kyler Murray comes available because he's now going to be released. He has been linked by various different people in the industry and reports that the Jets could be a team that would be interested in him. Do you think the Jets will be interested in Kyler Murray?
Yeah, they definitely would be interested, especially considering how cheap he would be. He's going to play on the minimum because he's getting all that money from Arizona. So, yeah, I mean, the Jets need a veteran quarterback. They, quite frankly, I hear that they probably interested in getting two veteran quarterbacks this offseason, kind of doing what the Giants did last year, where they surrounded Jackson Dart with obviously Russell Wilson and also Jameis Winston there. So you could see them maybe drafting a quarterback maybe like in round 4, but also having two veterans beside them too as well. But I mean, the biggest question with Kyler Murray with the Jets to me is not necessarily a culture. I mean, it is a cultural fit too, because I don't know, like he's gone through so many, bad things that Arizona too. You look at just, the fact of the matter is he's been called out for his lack of leadership and also just, is he serious about football? I think people kind of question that too as well. And then you look at the fact that I don't think he's been the same since that ACL injury in 2022. So, some people think he may be, a little bit shot there. I'm not saying that's the case, but, he has a lot to prove too. And also, I don't know, he's going to have some interest around the league. Obviously, Minnesota, I think, might be a team that's interested too, because they want to have somebody that can obviously challenge J.J. McCarthy. But, yeah, the Jets would definitely be interested in signing him. It's just a matter of what his options would be.
Would signing Kyler Murray or any other veteran preclude the Jets from taking a quarterback in day 1 or 2 of the draft? The only guy I think that would probably be in that conversation is Ty Simpson, though. In theory, maybe Nussmeier or Beck, someone like that. Do you think that the Jets would sign potentially, whether it's Murray or some other guy, and still take someone like Ty Simpson, whether it's first or second round?
I think you have to because Todd Simpson comes with a lot of questions too. You look at just this lack of body of work there. I mean, he spent 3 years just backing up Bryce Young and also Jalen Milroe at Alabama, and then for him to start only 15 games there, and then really like all you can really go on is just that body of work too. And half of it was really good. Like he looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and the other half he looked like a guy that should stay in school another year too, but he decided to come back and, despite having a lot of money there from a lot of different universities. But yeah, I don't know if you necessarily want him playing right away, even though I know the Jets have a really good offensive line, but they still lack weapons on the skill position players outside of Garrett and obviously Breece Hall. So I don't think it's necessarily be smart to just throw him into the fire like that. You definitely want to have a veteran or two to be able to do that. So I think no matter what they decide to do in the draft at the quarterback position, they're gonna have some veterans.
One of the things that stood out to me during the combine was Darren Muji and him in talking about the quarterback position, saying that there's been plenty of conversations, obviously, with the new offensive coordinator and Frank Reich. He's going to come in, he's going to call plays, obviously, and Aaron Glenn's going to be, the defensive play caller, so it's going to allow Frank Reich a lot of freedom to essentially be kind of the head coach of the offense. When it comes to this quarterback position, what do you think Frank Reich is looking for one of his guys? There was questions about whether or not Bryce Young was one of his guys and whether or not he wanted C.J. Stroud, which is part of the reason why I'm wondering if Kyler Murray makes sense. He's another smaller guy. From what you've been able to get intel on, what is Frank Reich looking for from this quarterback position for this season?
Well, really just somebody that can run his offense and that stabilize the quarterback position. That's something that everybody knows the Jets have had issues with for quite a long time. Like I don't even necessarily get into it, but I think you just look at some of the options out there. I think Tanner McKee has been talked about, Eagles backup too as well. Another name I'll throw out there, Andy Dalton too as well, like who worked with Frank Wright in Carolina. So that could be another option too as well. Obviously, he's familiar with the offense too. Andy Dalton's been around forever, so he knows like tons of offenses too. So I don't think necessarily that would be a bad thing to have somebody in the room like that too as well. Depending on what the Cardinals do with Jacoby Brissett too, I also think that's an option too because he also knows Frank Wright's offense dating back to his time with the Colts. So those are some options that they're going to keep an eye on too as well. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Andy Dalton became available, then they would go that route too. Also potentially adding somebody else as well.
The one thing that's interesting to me about kind of how this whole offseason has gone down is the Jets had the number 2 pick in the draft, and because there isn't a quarterback that's going to be taken after Fernando Mendoza at 2, it's almost like the number 2 pick, it's kind of become a little bit, not an afterthought, but it's kind of like a secondary story. So much is about what's going to be with Ty Simpson, what's the deal with Kyler Murray. Like, everything's about the quarterback. I always say play the Malik Wright. Everybody knows the quarterback line from the game. Like, it seems like that has been the conversation more dominant than even the number 2 pick in the draft. I want to ask you about that. They made the trade that moves Jermaine Johnson out. Brings Sweat in. Sweat's going to be a nose tackle, and it seems like they're going to move to a 3-4, which means there's an edge position available. Based on what you're hearing, where do you think the Jets are leaning in terms of will that be the pick at 2, and who are the guys that they're looking at?
Well, I think if you're the Jets, ultimately you're in a good position, especially in this draft where I know it's not, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback and how sexy he is, but you have a lot of needs, so you could just go best available player, like, and I don't think anybody would bat an eye, because the Jets need so much help, like in a lot of different areas. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great edge draft there. I mean, I think Reese would probably be the guy if they had to draft today, just because of his upside and everything he brings. He can be an off-ball linebacker, but he also can rush the edge too. You can use him as a chess piece along that defensive line too, and I think Aaron Glenn would be, excited about that. But you also have to look at it too, is like a guy like Reese is more of a project at the edge as well. Like, you hope he can turn out to be like a Micah Parsons, whereas a guy like David Bailey, you're already getting a really good pass rusher because he's done it at a high level at Texas Tech and even at Stanford before he transferred to the Red Raiders. Like, he was still a high level pass rusher. So it depends on are they going on potential, or are they going on somebody that's a more of a proven product? And I think David Bailey is the more proven product, and I think they have to assess that simply because Aaron Glenn is on the proverbial hot seat. And, as with the Jets, it's never a dull moment. And obviously with Woody Johnson, he's always very unpredictable. So you cannot get off to another 0-7 start, because if that's the case, then I think they're going to have some major changes going on during the season.
I'll tell you what, the whole conversation about Aaron Glenn coming into this year, some people wondered if he was going to survive. Was there any chance he was going to be a one and done based on how things ended, or were they just committed to bringing him back almost regardless?
Unless they went 0-17, then yeah, it was really not going to be the case there. I mean, you have to look at it from a lot of different ways because Woody would have had to pay Aaron Glenn a lot of money to go away. And then Woody had to pay somebody else to come in there. And you have to remember, Aaron Glenn really wanted this job. Like, as bad as, a lot of people think the Jets job is one of the worst in the NFL. And he still really wanted it. And he's a homegrown guy. He drafted there, all pro, played under Bill Parcells, things of that nature too as well. So, yeah, who are you going to get that wants this job more than Aaron Glenn? I don't know if that person exists out there, at least right now. So I think the wise thing for them, and I think they realize that give him another year, see what you can do. You have a lot of money to spend in free agency as far as the salary cap. Try to shore up as many holes as possible, and then in 2026, see where you are there. If you're still winning 3 games in 2026, then yeah, I think you might have to make some changes there too. But ultimately, they believe that they can, improve this pretty quickly too as well, especially considering, Glenn will be calling the defense. And as he put it, he believes that's his superpower. So we're going to find out pretty quickly, especially considering the opponents that they play in 26.
I mean, and you were up close and personal watching Aaron Glenn in his first year, and there were obviously a ton of struggles. He seemed to be learning quite a bit on the job, and some of that led to consistency and communication to you guys and the press. I don't know if that communication was inconsistent also to the players, but you kind of wonder if that's the case. What was your assessment of him in his first year in terms of what went wrong and what he needs to do to improve to ensure that he is not a 2 and done instead of being a 1 and done?
Well, I mean, I'll say the players really loved Aaron Glenn. Like, they really bought his minute, no matter what, happened last year, especially losing the way that they did, 5 straight games by, 20 points or more to end the season. That's never happened, before in NFL history. But yet the players still after the season, they were very positive about Aaron Glenn and breathing in the direction that he's going in. Obviously, it starts at the quarterback position. Like, signing Justin Fields to that 2-year, $40 million contract was a disaster there. Got benched after 9 games. I mean, it really started there. And then also you look at the defensive side of the ball. When he took over a top 5 defense, at least statistically. I'm not saying the Jets were, the Baltimore Ravens or anything like that, but they had talent on their defense. And then they go from, a top 5 unit to 29th in, I think, yards, allowed, and also 31st in points per game. So everything went wrong. Like, anything you can think of. The only bright spot, I think, with the Jets last year was the special teams. Like, Nick Foles did a great job. Austin McLemore and also I think, having, Chris Banjo there really kind of solidified, especially with the returners that they had. And I think Darren Moody did a great job too as well. Like, I think you have to give him credit to some of the moves that he made there. Sauce Gardner, I know there's been a lot of talk about that, but we were able to get the trade access for him and Quentin Williams, who Quentin was not very happy. He was happy to go to Dallas, somewhere where they could have a better opportunity to win. But everything you could think of went wrong last year. So I think that's kind of where it starts. But it starts at the quarterback position, getting that right. Because if you get that right, then, I think that's 50% of just kind of what, 50% of everything in the NFL, just the way the quarterback position goes.
Antwan Staley of the Daily News joining me live here on 40 Days and 40 Nights. I wanted to ask you about the free agent class because the Jets have a ton of cap space. They're going to eat $14 million of this cap space for now on the Breece Hall franchise tag because they cleared some space with the trade of Jermaine Johnson. That's essentially money that they never really lost. So you're coming in with about $80 million plus in cap space. What are the Jets looking at in terms of free agency? What are some of their kind of target needs that they're looking at as an opportunity to fill some holes?
Well, outside the quarterback position, because obviously that's obvious. I think they need to add another wide receiver too as well to help with Garrett as well. Because I don't feel like you had that second option, that second threat opposite Garrett. And obviously Garrett getting hurt, missing 10 games, certainly, also hindered the offense too as well. So you got to find more playmakers there. You got to sign a guard because John Simpson and AVT are both free agents. It seemed like, they're both going to let them test free agency, in particular John Simpson, who his contract was void last week. So yeah, he's definitely gonna be a free agent next week. So you gotta hold there too as well. I think they need another edge rusher too as well. And even if they draft one, because it's been some questions about Will McDonald. I mean, I think he had a decent season, but a lot of his sacks were in bunches. And I also think he had some issues just kind of, with the run defense too as well. So, if you want to talk about offense there, I think a guy like Allen Pierce, depending on if the coach kind of let him get out the building, that might be something that excites the Jets too as well. You know, I know it's been talk about Devin Lloyd potentially. I don't know if the Jets are going to be wanting to give him a ton of money there too as well. I know Alex Angeloni, from the Lions. I definitely think that's probably more of a fit there. And obviously, Aaron Glenn knows him from this time back in Detroit too, so I can definitely see that happening too as well. Another name that you can kind of keep an eye on too is they're kind of just seeing what's out there is Minka Fitzpatrick, obviously with the Dolphins too as well, and seeing if they're going to release him or potentially trade him. If they do trade him, then they might be something that the Jets are interested in because they definitely need safety help, and they've needed safety help for a really long time to be able to get a guy that can at least stabilize the position where you find somebody else that can be a long-term solution at safety. I think that could be an added benefit as well.
Antwan Staley here, join me live for just a few more minutes. And I really appreciate this time. This has been awesome so far, man. And I do want to ask you also just about expectations from, I guess, Woody Johnson's standpoint, and I guess the front office. You want to add Darren Muji in that too. What do they want to see out of this Jets team? That this was one of the worst teams in the NFL. They've been one of the worst teams in the NFL for the last however many years. What, in their eyes, based on where they are right now, and they have assets to improve the team because of free agency and because of the additional draft picks, but what is realistically for them what they hope to be next year by the time we're having this conversation next year? Do they want to win 7 games? Do they want to make the playoffs? Like, what would be a successful season for the Jets moving forward based on where they stand right now?
Well, we hadn't spoken to Woody since the owners meet. We'll speak to him later this Monday. The owners meeting in Phoenix, so we'll ask him there. And my thinking is just kind of also just talking with people. They understand they're not going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, they play in a tough division with Buffalo and New England. They're not going anywhere. I think if you can win 7 games and it show marked improvement, I think that's the main thing with the Jets too. Because obviously the quarterback position you're not going to be able to get a long-term solution there. You don't think, unless you really love Ty Simpson, which I don't. I think they like Ty Simpson, but I don't think they love him enough to take him at 16 there. I think if he was around at 33, then I think that would be a whole nother conversation too as well. But, assuming they don't take Ty Simpson there, you're going to be looking for a quarterback at 27. So you just need somebody, again, that can help you win games there. Hopefully the defense improves enough where it just needs to be average. If it can be average, then maybe you can win 5 or 6 games, 7. They just can't go. They can't get off to a horrific start like they did last year. That's the main thing too, as well. Starting out 0-7, you're out of it by the time Halloween hits. So it just gave people so much. They didn't give a lot of people a lot of hope too. So they need to get off to a really good start there. Obviously, 2024 when Robert Saleh got fired, the Jets got off to a 2-3 start there, and Woody Johnson pulled the plug after Week 5 loss against the Vikings. You just hope that Woody just is more patient with Aaron Glenn, especially considering with all the holes and everything that they have. But as you know, the seat is always hot with the Jets, especially with Woody Johnson being the owner. So you never know what he's so unpredictable. So you never know what he's always thinking.
Antwan, before I get you out of here, I got to address it because anybody who's listened to my show or watched my show know how much I'm a beloved Miami Hurricanes fan. And you show up on the stream with a Florida Gators hat. First of all, do you respect the state champs? We didn't win a national championship, but Miami are the state champs. Do you have respect for the state champs? And also, are you a Florida fan? How do you feel about the Gators and new coach John Summerall?
Yeah, I'm a love. So yeah, I love the Gators.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So as far as I used to cover Miami. I used to live down in South Florida, so I covered the Canes for years. So I have respect for them. I also covered Mario Cristobal when he was at Oregon. So that was my job before I took the Jets job. So yeah, I know him really well. I still know people down there. So yeah, I got a lot of respect for him. I was kind of happy for them, even though Canes fans really hate the Gators, so I try. My biggest rival is LSU, Georgia, all that stuff. But I get it home, in-state rivalries and all that. But yeah, I mean, the Canes will be really good next year. They're going to be a force to reckon with now, especially with Cristobal getting that transfer portal there going. But Summerall, I think he's going to do a good job at Florida. I just think they have to give him some time there, let him get his recruits there, and hopefully Florida can get back to winning 10 games a year. But they play the SEC is so tough now, especially adding Oklahoma and Texas in there too in the midst. So if they could just, beat Georgia and be respectful with the 10 wins, maybe make a playoff every now and then, I think I would be satisfied with that. But Gator fans are never satisfied unless they're competing for championships.
You're so right about that. And my brother's a diehard Florida Gators fan, so he would got a lot of love for you showing up with the Gators hat here. Last thing, 2026, who's starting at quarterback for the Jets in your prediction?
I'm gonna week one. I'm gonna say this is probably not gonna be make a lot of people happy, but I'm gonna say Andy Dalton starting week at least week one, at least initially. So we'll go with that.
Wow. So you think it's going to be Dalton? Is there like a young quarterback in the
It's
mix that maybe is it a
yes,
Ty Simpson or
it
someone like
could be
that
like
who?
a I think it could be like a Drew Aller, like Nussmeier probably situation too, in addition to maybe some like another veteran too as well. So maybe just let those guys, go out there too as well. I know another name that I didn't mention too. I know some people talked about Davis Mills too as well, but I just can't see the Texans like letting them go, especially considering the playoffs that CJ Stroud, had last year. But if they do, they put them on the market, then I do expect the Jets to be one of those people that make that call.
Antwan, this is phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining me for 40 days and 40 nights. Obviously, I do shows on the fan, so I got to have you on WFEN to talk more Jets soon. This has been awesome, buddy. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, man. Shout out to Antwan Staley coming in and dropping the mic. What a last prediction there. Andy Dalton? And I'm not like, that's what he's hearing. I'm not like, at all poo-pooing the Staley report there. But if that's the best the Jets can do, I got to watch a season of Andy Dalton. That's going to be rough. Oh, my God. You probably saw my eyes bug out when he said that. Like, I didn't know. I assumed it was going to, I assumed he was going to say Kyler Murray. I didn't know. Or Ty Simpson. Now, again, he kind of referenced it. I said, with a young quarterback, Ty Simpson. He said, yeah, but then he also mentioned, like, it could be, like, Drew Aller's the young quarterback that's waiting. I'm like, wait, what? So that's why it's important to talk to these people that are in the mix. They hear things that you don't typically hear. We want to throw out the big name, your Kyler Murray this, your Kirk Cousins that, though I saw Kirk Cousins was essentially ruled out of any idea of him being, I think, a Jet. I think that was the report I saw earlier this week. But and the Andy Dalton thing is interesting because it's not something I really considered, that Dalton was there when Reich was there. He was the backup for Bryce Young when Bryce Young blew up and had a terrible rookie year. He was not able to salvage Frank Reich's job, and he was gone before the season even ended. He was like gone like 10 games into the season. It was really ugly. So he brought in Andy Dalton, and he clearly liked him, and not enough to be the backup quarterback. He will be available. So that's an interesting thing. Andy Dalton starting as an NFL quarterback in 2026. That in week one is definitely not something I would have expected. I guess you could say maybe we wouldn't have expected Joe Flacco starting week one earlier this year too, and that happened as well. So it wouldn't be like the craziest thing in the world. But that's a little bit of a stunner if that ends up being the case. That if it's Andy Dalton plus a quarterback that they take in, a third round game. If you're talking about Nussmeier or Aller, Nussmeier maybe late second round, but you're probably talking more third round, fourth round guys, and that's the quarterback room going in. Antwan said the Jets don't expect to be a playoff team. He made that clear, is that they are not silly enough to think that they're going to make the playoffs. So it's basically just about showing some improvement and not being one of the worst teams in the NFL again. Again, I see that, and it makes me wonder, is the tank possible for a second year in a row? I'll be clear. I'm not totally against it. Like, I've said that a ton. Like, my thing is, like, the quarterback is not here for you. Do not do something silly and say, you know what, let's get somebody that's going to come in here and win us a bunch of games that we have no shot to make the playoffs, and therefore we have no shot to actually get our franchise quarterback in next year's draft. Now, I think next year's draft, just like I mentioned with the Vikings earlier, is going to be a lot more advantageous to the Jets because there'll be more quarterbacks, I believe, though you never know. You got to see this whole thing play out. But it seems like there'll be more quarterbacks available, which will mean that you won't have to be in the top 2 or 3 to get a guy. You might be able to be 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever. Or be in a position to maybe trade up to get one of those guys if that's something that you need to do. And they have the capital now to do that. So it won't be as desperate. But I'm also for, like, hey, listen, man, I've seen a lot of sorry Jet seasons. What's one more going to do to my health and my well-being? You can't do that much more damage. So my thing is, like, if they got to be a terrible team again and Aaron Glenn's going to get fired, which at this point in time, I don't have much confidence in where he stands as Jets head coach, I would be totally okay with that if it means they get the number 1, number 2 pick and they're drafting Darian Mensah or Arch Manning or one of these other guys. That's how I've always felt. So Andy Dalton would definitely be we are taking a huge flyer on Dalton and one of these lower tiered quarterbacks. And if a miracle happens and these guys are good, then great. We found a guy that we never would have expected as our franchise guy. But we're also totally fine with winning, 5-6 games next year, and that'll be totally okay. That's interesting. It's I think when it comes to, I think a lot of the Jet conversation is a lot of from Jet fans, hopeful. So you're trying to find like the guys with the highest ceilings. Dalton, I think, probably would have one of the lowest ceilings of the guys we're talking about. Not the lowest floor. Richardson has the lowest floor, I think. And there's some other guys who may have lower floors. Dalton is not like a complete scrub, but again, him playing with these guys, offensive line's okay. They have one good receiver. They will have Breece Hall. I also thought it was interesting, Antwan said that Breece Hall doesn't want to be a Jet. I just wish he would show it. Just every now and then. Like, I saw a funny bit I've told you about Love is Blind, which comes on Thursday, so fully expect, or Wednesday or Thursday, I always forget what day it is. I think it's Wednesday. So Wednesday, yeah, because Thursday was Traders. Wednesday is Love is Blind. So fully expect a huge breakdown on the finale of Love is Blind. Talking about who gets married and who doesn't get married, because that is the big ultimate moment of the show, that beyond the engagements and the reveals. And there's a funny bit where like these two that I've talked about, Brittany and Devontae. This is the couple where Devontae has this fine black Latina woman and he don't seem to have any interest in her. None. Just does not see it. She keeps complaining that she doesn't tell her that she's pretty, that she doesn't want to be physical, that she's celibate, so she doesn't want to have sex. But she's even like admitted, like, I will even have sex if it means we get past whatever block we're having. They seem to still be together and getting along, but it doesn't seem like they solved these issues because she's still complaining about him not saying that she's pretty. I only bring this up because sometimes I feel that way as a Jets fan, and Breece Hall is playing for the team because he's around, he plays, but every time he talks about being a Jet or what it's like to be a Jet or his frustrations, he never seemed to sound like a guy that's like, oh, but I do want to be a Jet. I want to see this thing through. I never see those things. And it reminds me of these two. I feel like now listen, the Jets are not this very lovely young woman. The Jets would be, I'm not going to compare looks to anybody else, but they just would not be one of the more desired people out there if this was a dating game, if the NFL was a dating game. So I do get that. But I do feel like it's like, can you at least tell me once that you want to be a Jet? Can you at least say it out there? Can you put out a tweet? Can you do a let's go, we're going to turn this thing around once, please? I saw someone do a joke with these two. They did a spoof where they were like playing like, these two having a conversation that actually happened on the show, but it was a bit. And she was just like, and the woman who was playing both people, the girl and the guy, was like, I know you're saying that like, I'm not, you don't want to say I'm pretty because like that's their personality required. He's like, yeah, but like I know you think I'm pretty. At least I hope you do. He's like, yeah, you can think that. But you also could just say I'm pretty, right? He's like, yeah, that's something I can do. And you could just say it now, of course, can you? Yeah, that is something that can happen. So do you want to say it? He's like, well, I mean, yeah, that's something that totally can be said now in theory. Like he won't. Like the joke was that he won't ever say that the woman is pretty because it seems like he doesn't think so. I don't know. Again, I don't know what he's seeing. But that's been the whole ordeal. And sometimes I feel that way as a Jets fan watching Breece Hall work with the Jets, where he's in it, just like those two. They're talking about marriage. Brittany and Devontae. They're 2 days away from potentially getting married and this being long term. And Brittany's still sitting there wondering. It's funny. She's wearing jet green, ironically. She's wondering, does this guy even think I'm pretty? And I have no idea. He's not saying anything. I kind of feel like that's the Jets negotiating with Breece Hall. Jets are like, does Breece Hall think I'm pretty? I don't know, but like, we've signed the franchise tag, which is kind of like the engagement, and we're working on a long-term deal, which is kind of like the marriage. But he also doesn't seem to ever say anything publicly that suggests that he actually likes the Jets or wants to be here anymore. So what's the actual deal? Thank you for indulging me in my Love is Blind Jets connection there. Did not think I would be making that reference, but here we are here. Bob, he's been woken up in the chat, seeing Brittany. EJ, what gal is this who is celibate? That again, that is Brittany from Love is Blind, who I was just referencing. Love is Blind is a reality show that we talked about a bunch on 40 Days and 40 Nights. It's a show where singles get together. They date in pods behind walls where they can't see each other. And they could talk for, I guess, however long they want to determine after 10 days whether or not they want to get engaged. Sight unseen. And of course, because this is reality TV, and I can't even say this is America. This is a show now that's transitioned to a UK version. There's a Italian version. There's a French version. There's a Swedish version. There is I think an Indian version too. There's a Japanese version. Like, this is just humans. We're all crazy that would want to do this crazy thing. And they determine whether or not they want to engage. Some people do get engaged because we're all lunatics, and they try to see if they have enough compatibility once they've now seen each other and have to live together for 30 days to determine whether or not they can indeed get married. And they have a chance to go to the altar and decide at that point in time, is Love is Blind? And that is where you decide that we're either going to get married or we're going to walk away from each other, quote unquote, forever. I say quote unquote because you don't technically have to walk away from the person forever, but you have to not get married, obviously. But there's an actual wedding, your parents show up, your family shows up, like everybody shows up. Or like some people boycott. Like there are people who are like, this is a stupid process. I can't believe my daughter or my son did this. I'm not showing up to this wedding. Like that's a thing that happens too. So it's a wild show. But yes, that woman I showed, Brittany, she was saying that she was she was celibate because she is just a way of life she was doing, and she was trying to find true love. And you know, she thought that maybe that was why this guy wasn't feeling comfortable saying that she was pretty or even like hugging her or touching her in any way. And that was why I brought that up. But yeah, that's how I feel watching Breece Hall in the New York Jets, is the long story short. 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media, streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart, and streaming live on Instagram, Action And of course, do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Of course, if you watch me on X, make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart, and make sure you follow me on Instagram, Action EJ. Wherever you're watching, if you can, give me a thumbs up. If you can give me a like, whether you're watching on Instagram, watching on YouTube, watching on X, that all is appreciative and helps with engagement. So we greatly appreciate that. So if you give me a like, that works. And if you're listening to the podcast version, because all these episodes get podcasted on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Last night's episode, which was night 36, along with this morning's episode, which was day 37, those episodes are on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. You can get these episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights and every other episode we do here on New Generation Media. So if you like superhero talk, and we're going to get into some superhero talk in a minute, we have a awesome show called Hero Talk. If you like talk about Star Wars, we have an awesome podcast, The Imperial Broadcast, that's hosted by my brothers Shamar and Kendall. If you like wrestling, and if you were here on Friday night to see Lucas Goldman talk about the WWE ahead of Elimination Chamber, me and Lucas Goldman, who's a former WWE writer, talk a ton about wrestling on that podcast. We just locked down a date to hopefully record soon towards the end of the month, so that will be coming out shortly as well. That's off script. That's also on the podcast channel. Me and Kendall will be launching Sports Talk. There will be plenty of other content getting created here as we rev up for 2026, which is began with this venture of 40 Days and 40 Nights, but we're just getting started here. What's going to be a big year for New Generation Media. Yes, Bob, that is the program. Okay, that's the program you like, Love is Blind. Yes, that woman's from Love is Blind. That was the woman I was talking about. Shout out to Bob in the chat. Let's get to what I was talking about when it comes to the DC stuff. Well, actually, before I get to that, I do want to get to the stuff happening with the comic books and DC and James Gunn. I mentioned that there's a big thing happening tonight. I'm really excited about that. And don't leave me if you're watching me now. But you'll have time before the game starts. NBA on NBC, which I think has been a smash hit. I think they've done a phenomenal job. I think that the Carmelo Anthony team with Vince Carter and T. Mac have been great as a studio team. They had Rhea Taylor in the mix. I think Mike Tirico, it's been fun having him back calling basketball. I kind of forgot how good he was at calling basketball. He used to be great covering the Big East back in the day on Big Mondays and stuff. He's brought a lot to the NBA to the table. Joel Crawford's done a very good job. The NBA and NBC production has been good, both on NBC and on Peacock. And they're doing something really cool right now. It started already on the pregame show. They're doing an NBA throwback broadcast. So a lot of the nostalgia that we have felt with the NBA returning to the NBC, which for a lot of folks are the golden age of the NBA. The Michael Jordan years, the 90s, the NBA on Sundays during the spring and late winter and obviously early summer when you're talking about the playoffs. It was everything. And this program that they're doing today, where you got the Spurs playing against the Sixers, and you have throwback graphics, throwback imaging, all the nine, to recreate the 90s broadcast. So Bob Costas, Doug Collins, Mike Fratello, three guys, that were staples during that era of 90s basketball on NBC, are going to be covering and calling the game tonight for the Sixers and the Spurs, which is awesome. The studio team will be led by Hannah Storm, who currently works for ESPN. Major shout out to ESPN for allowing Hannah Storm to do this. She obviously is a pioneer, and I know we joke with Matty Gray, you don't call people legends while they're still working, but a true icon in this game still, Hannah Storm. Hannah Storm, Isaiah Thomas, PJ Cutler, some other guys that were staples on NBA on NBC during those 90s era broadcasts. They're going to be in the studio. Again, retro graphics, retro everything. That's going to be awesome, man. Apparently it started already. It started at 7, so I'm sure it's been awesome. But I wanted to give them a major shout out because that's I just think that's a great idea. Whoever thought about that, it's going to be a ton of fun. And you got a pretty good game. You got Spurs, you got Sixers, you got no Embiid. That's unfortunate, but let's be real. It's to be expected. He's Joel Embiid. No Embiid, but you do still have a electrifying backcourt with Maxey and Edgecombe. And, of course, you got the young Spurs that have been one of the best stories in the NBA, and Victor Wembanyama, who is also an MVP candidate. And, again, we got to cast a wide net because we don't know what injuries are going to happen and whether or not Shea and Jokic end up potentially missing the opportunity to win an MVP because of the minimum games they have to play. Both of them are still above the threshold right now, but they don't have a lot of wiggle room. Jokic has almost no wiggle room at this point. So Wembanyama, one of the guys in the mix that you have to talk about also for MVP, considering the West is difficult as it usually is, and the Spurs have been the second best team in the West for the majority of this season. So NBC throwback broadcast, that's tonight. Really excited about that. So again, before we get out of here, I do want to talk about a couple of things outside of the sports world. I wanted to bring up what's been going on with DC. So we saw the deal become official. You had Warner Brothers Discovery that had been in this up for sale negotiation with Netflix and Paramount, which says Paramount in there. Apologies for the typo there. I can fix that real quick on the lower third. And not like that. Try that one more time. There you go. For Warner Brothers and for Paramount and Netflix, they were negotiating with both Paramount and Netflix to determine who would buy the program and the library that is expansive for Warner Brothers. That includes everything Discovery had and Warner Brothers prior to that merger. That includes HBO. That includes DC Films, DC Studios rather. The libraries that are with all of them. Food Network, HGTV. It is a massive library that comes with Warner Brothers and Discovery. And this was a negotiation went back and forth. It seemed like Netflix had won the power struggle. But then Paramount was not going to take that line down. So Paramount made their presence felt, and they tried a hostile offer. All the typical, stuff, mumbo jumbo that happens with big mergers and things. I'm sure stuff that was in that show. What's it called? I can't remember the HBO show that I used to love. The show with I don't know why I'm remembering the show now. But anyway, those shows where they talk about corporate mergers and things like that. Anyway, I am looking at this situation, and all those things are important in terms of the actual ramifications of what this means for media and entertainment and monopolies, and those things are also obviously are all huge deals that I'm not trying to lose sight of. It's just my purview and my expertise when it comes to this content, I'm talking about superheroes and DC films, so that's where I'm gonna stick with this. And I saw what was some very interesting commentary from John Campea, who does his own YouTube channel, who's an independent commentator when it comes to the movie entertainment business. He also is a movie critic, and he said this on his YouTube channel. Shout out to John Campea. This was his purview. He says, he prefaces it that he has not spoken to James Gunn, but for someone who is connected to the industry, he thinks James Gunn's days as the head of DC Studios is numbered.
Sometime before the end of the year, I 100% guarantee. Again, I haven't spoken to James Gunn. I'm just telling you what I think. But I am 100% sure that before the end of the year, James Gunn is going to go to David Zaslav and say, it's been nice, but there's no way I'm working for those guys. So can you please let me out of my contract? And I think David Zaslav will let him out of his contract. And then I think he's going to end up back at Marvel, and he will become Kevin Feige's heir apparent to take over Marvel after Kevin Feige finally goes.
Whoa, that is a lot in one soundbite from John Campea. So not only is his thought process that he doesn't think there's any chance James Gunn would ever want to work for the people that will be leading, you know, this new Paramount Warner Brothers conglomerate or whatever it becomes. I believe it's just going to be Paramount. I think they're just taking over. He doesn't believe that James Gunn wants any part of that. He will just step up and walk away from DC if he can to other pastures and potentially to Marvel to be Feige's heir apparent. Kevin Feige, who's the president of Marvel Studios, CEO of Marvel Studios. I haven't heard anything about, we've asked and suggested maybe Kevin Feige should go on a long vacation and retire, but we haven't heard any rumors that that was imminent or that was going to happen. So this is the first time you hear anything of someone saying that maybe a succession plan could be in place if this happens, where James Gunn would potentially be the person that's picked to take over and pick up the ball from wherever Kevin Feige leaves it, whenever that is. And I don't know how recent that is or if it's far away. I really, again, have no idea. But that's huge. That Campea's thought is that he 100% believes that this is something that will happen if this thing goes through the way it looks like it is right now. So you may ask, okay, why is that? I think you get a little bit of a taste of where this is. But John Campea wants to make it clear that this is James Gunn not wanting to work with a side that has been very cushy to the White House. Now, there is a little bit of a curse in this soundbite. So if you have kids, apologies, and maybe real discretion, and maybe just kind of, you know, turn down the volume for like 30 seconds. But here's John Campea on the actual beef that James Gunn would have with working with Paramount.
You just can't imagine a scenario that James Gunn, because we all know how James Gunn feels about Donald Trump. Whether you think he's right to feel that way or whether you think he's wrong to feel that way, we all know how James Gunn feels about Donald Trump, and Ellison's are Donald Trump's little fuck toys. So I just don't see any reality in which James Gunn stays. He's going to quit. He's absolute. I just can't see him staying.
I see no reality where James Gunn stays. I mean, and John Campea, you know, first of all, shout out to him. You know, he's been a huge inspiration to everything we've done at New Generation Media. He is someone that is a scooper. He's also someone that's a commentator. So he's going to want to get content. He's going to want to stir the pot a little bit. But he's also kind of shied away from some of that because, you know, he's brought a lot of heat on and attention for spoiling movies and those different things. I think he's tried to step away from that. But Campea being that defiant that he thinks that there's no way that Gunn wants to be associated with the Ellisons, who, of course, run Paramount, that Henry Ellison's the CEO, and the reporting's been out there. This is not a political take. The reporting's out there that, you know, they have big cushy to the White House, and some of the moves that have been made with what Paramount currently owns, like CBS News, have been made to appease Donald Trump. And here you have now them buying Paramount, which was apparently buying Warner Brothers, which apparently was a huge deal not for DC Studios, but for CNN. To once again kind of grow the news outlet, and I guess however they want to present, national news and international news moving forward with a different lens. None of that has to do with DC Studios, and the early reporting was that there was no indication that Paramount would want to remove James Gunn, at least not recently. There was some questions months and months ago. Then as this got closer to being reality, it seemed like more the word you were hearing was, no, but it seems like James Gunn's going to stay, and this is going to be, all systems go and nothing to see here. This is the first kind of major domino of like, no, there is going to be a problem potentially. And again, John Campy's opinion, he thinks that this would be a non-negotiable for James Gunn in terms of working for Paramount. That would suck. Now, let me say this. If Paramount was going to come in and tell James Gunn, listen, we have a vision of how we view movies and how movies should look and the messages behind them, and we don't want this kind of message or that kind of message based on our ideology. And if that comes into any of the conversation, then James Gunn should leave. I'll be real. Then this thing is dead, and we're all screwed. We may be screwed anyway, but we're definitely screwed when it comes to DC Studios reaching whatever potential we thought it was going to reach, with James Gunn having the freedom that he had under David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery. If that's the case, there's nothing to see here. He has to move on, and this just sucks, right? Because then maybe we have another reboot. Maybe we're talking about a new Superman. I don't know, but I just know it's not going to be good. If that is not the case, and Paramount saying we want no smoke with you, James Gunn, like we have political disagreements, but you can do whatever you want with DC Studios, and we support you, and we're going to make a lot of money and be highly successful. I'd be a little torn on how I feel about James Gunn just picking up and leaving. I would respect his principles for sure, for being in a situation where he just decides these people are against my values and therefore I want to leave. Fine. I'm all for someone standing on their principles and values. Getting out of your contract over whatever years you have does feel a little bit like for the fans, like now we're not getting what we were expecting from you. Now, we didn't pay you the money. Warner Discovery paid you the money. But if you have a certain amount of money coming over to you in your contract, and years that are coming to your contract, and you've been talking about all these projects that you have coming down the pike, and then Paramount gives you no indication that they're going to come in and screw with your creative vision, and you may have ideological disagreements, but you're going to still be able to make the movies you want and tell the stories that you want. That would suck if he just decided to up and leave. It would. I'll be honest. If I'm being real, being a superhero fan and what I like, I get him from a human standpoint. I get him from all other standpoints. But from just that standpoint, that would suck. Because then you'd leave us where, if you're a fan of Batman, you're a fan of Superman. Now, if you're a fan of Batman right now, you're not getting much love from James Gunn, because it seems like we're stuck in the mud on actually getting a new Batman movie. The Batman's coming out, but that, of course, is not under James Gunn's DCU universe, connected universe that he's created. If we don't get any of that, and we would have wasted all this time with this very good first Superman movie, I'm really excited about Supergirl. We had the Creature Commando show that was really good. Like, if all that was for nothing, like if all that comes up, in 2 years they got a new, it just would suck. That's how I really would feel about it. It would open all the can of worms of, is there going to be a Snyderverse reemergence or some other thing? Like, all those things potentially come on the table with what John Campy, said, and that would be the darkest timeline. That would be the worst case scenario. Like I've said a bunch, and my good friend Rob DeRay joked in the chat. Like, there's been plenty of indications that this is the darkest timeline. This, in terms of superhero movies, would definitely tell me, okay, yeah, this is the darkest timeline. The timeline where James Gunn goes over to DC, launches a Superman movie that creates a connected universe, drops several DCU projects, Peacemaker Season 2, Creature Commandos, other projects that are coming out like Lanterns, the Superman movie that comes out. We have Supergirl coming up fairly soon, actually. And it's like, oh, never mind, actually, we're going to just quit and we're going to move on. We're just going to go over to Marvel. That would suck. Now, for Marvel, I really like what James Gunn showed he can be as a executive running a creative vision. And he is, I think, took some not so slick shots at Marvel's creative process. It seems like some of the changes he has made at DC are things that are not being done at Marvel, like making sure scripts are ready for launching, being a lot more hands-on with every story that's happening, being a lot more communicative with all different filmmakers about each other's visions. Like, all those different things that we complained about with Marvel is not happening at DC. At least that's what they're saying. So it'd be a great win for Marvel if that ends up being the case. But that would suck if James Gunn leaves DC Studios for the Paramount deal. But again, that's how he feels. Those are his principles. There's someone who, I'm sure, he said he didn't talk to them then, but I'm sure he's talked to James Gunn before, so he knows the sensibilities about this. If he's saying it, I'm going to say that at the very least there's a concern. I'm not going to say it's a done deal or that it's definitely going to happen. That can't be 100% right, because he did say he did not talk to James Gunn. It doesn't mean he didn't talk to, like, Jennifer Holland or someone like that, who's his wife. Or Sean Gunn. In theory, you could talk to a family member. You could talk to somebody else that may say, James Gunn will leave if this happens. There's other people around James Gunn that can get you a good feel for what he's thinking. But I saw this and I like slumped in my chair like, oh man, you gotta be kidding me. I kept saying that, relax, this is all gonna be fine. We're not gonna lose anything. Everything's gonna move forward. And now I really have a reason to root against Paramount moving forward if this does happen, if we end up losing all the momentum we had with the DCU being created by James Gunn. It sounds like, according to John Campea, there is a chance, a real chance. He thinks, by his account, a 100% chance that if Paramount is running the show, he's going to be gone. And Paramount will be running the show. So days may be numbered for James Gunn running DC Studios. Last show before we get out of here, man. And thank you so much for joining me for 40 Days, 40 Nights. We're up to 200 viewers live right now, which is phenomenal stuff. Shout out to you, the viewer, the listener, anybody who supported New Generation Media, anybody that supported me, anybody that supported this journey of 40 Days and 40 Nights. It is night 37. It's crazy to see that time winding down as we're just, after today, 3 days away from the end of this. This has been a phenomenal ride. If you have any interest in what this project has been, it's the first time you're watching 40 Days and 40 Nights or listening to 40 Days and 40 Nights. There is a library of content on our YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Of course, a library of earlier episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights on our podcast channel. You can listen to all of them or watch all of them at any time you want at your leisure. So be sure, again, to subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. There will be more content coming out once this journey of 40 Days and 40 Nights ends. There will be something that EJ will be doing with his time. It will not be 2 times a day. It will not be at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Or it could be, in theory, be at those times, but it's not going to be. I doubt it's going to be at 8 a.m. I'll be real. 8 a.m., the 8 a.m. wake ups, I think, are, in my household, are annoying everybody. They didn't like my 4 a.m. wake ups when I was waking up at, I woke up, what did I used to wake up at? Like 4:50? When I was waking up, no, 4 o'clock. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, 4 o'clock. When I was waking up at 4 o'clock to go to Maggie and Perloff's show, traveling to New York City to get to Infinity Sports Network and get to the studios, that annoyed everybody in my household for these last 2 years. My dog, Lita, who is her birthday today. I'll get to that in a second. My dog, Lita, Andrea, that was already an annoyance. So I get laid off, and it's like, all right, well, at least now he's going to be waking up at a normal time. And it's like, well, actually, yeah, now I'm waking up at 6:50. It's still earlier than they would like, so they, meaning mostly Lita, she's the one that makes the most noise and is very frustrated. She has made it a very loud understanding that she is not happy with the arrangement that is happening, but it will end soon. So I doubt it's going to be an 8 a.m. thing that's happening with EJ Stewart and new content, but there will be more content post 40 Days and 40 Nights. So don't you worry. You don't got to be concerned about, EJ's going to be gone and I'm not going to have anything. You will have something coming up. It just won't be every weekday, I don't think. And it definitely won't be twice a day, because this is a big grind here but a fun labor of love. This has been such a fun journey. But yes, it's Lita's birthday. I want to see if I can post a picture of Lita real quick. It is her birthday. She is 8 years old, which is, I mean, what can I say? I mean, she's just the greatest. She's the greatest little doggy. And now here she is celebrating her birthday, which is a big day in the household. We have not done anything quite special for her yet. We probably should think of something. Now I'm thinking about it. But we've given her a lot of love. We've given her a lot of attention. She seems to have greatly appreciated that. I want to see if I can pull up. Oh, here's go. This is the picture I was looking for. You've seen the picture before. But it's actually one of my favorite pictures of Lita. So I feel like why not just show it up right now. Let's see. Yeah, the little doggy. Look at the little baby. Look at the little baby. She's a cute little doggy. Shout out to my future brother-in-law, Christian, for taking that picture of her. That little doggy is 8 years old. She's been loud. She's been boisterous. She's wanted more attention than she's gotten today. Probably saying, it is my birthday. Why aren't you just stopping work and just paying all the attention to me? So she's definitely made her presence felt. You've probably heard her back there. I've heard her barking a couple of times throughout this show. You've definitely heard her at some point during this whole 40 days and 40 nights if you've been rocking with me. But it is Lita's birthday, so make sure to give her a birthday shout out. She actually has an Instagram. I didn't even mention this. I can't believe I haven't mentioned it. It's night 37 and I haven't talked about this. Lita has her own social media. You can follow Lita. It's the Lita Report. So the Lita, Lita Report on Instagram. That is her social media. I am her unpaid social media intern, along with my fiance, Andrea, though I do most of the work because I'm the one who runs it. And you can see lovely updates on Lita, pictures, videos, all those deals. And this is something we have for years. It's not a new thing, but it is Lita's birthday, which is a ton of fun. So happy birthday to my lovely Lita. I love you, little baby. Look at the little baby. She's a good little baby. I know the people listening to the podcast being like, what is EJ talking about? I don't have a video for this, so he just sounds like a moron. But I'm sorry. I don't know how you don't see those eyes and see that little doggy and just melt. She is a handful, but still absolutely my heart. Love you, Lita. Happy birthday, little baby. We got my guy Big Friendly in the chat. This is actually important. I'm glad you brought this up, Big Friendly. I can't believe I missed all you guys the other night. I'm so heartbroken. So it was in the morning, so that was probably the first issue with why you missed them. It was in the morning. It was yesterday morning. I'll be real, Big Friendly. Like, I'm a little disappointed in myself because I feel like it wasn't what it was supposed to be. There was a lot of technical issues. They are there, and you could see them, and you could hear them some of the times once we all got them on a Zoom call as opposed to being on a normal chat. But it was not as smooth as I hoped it would be. There were various reasons why. The main reason was I shouldn't have done 4 people at once. But other reasons that, in hindsight, I thought about, I probably should have adjusted a couple of things to maybe give myself a better shot at that working. But I think there's a good chance you will see at least some of them one more time for your boy EJ signs off on 40 days and 40 nights. Just saying. Early conversations have happened. And I think there is hope that you will see some of them again. It will not be all 4. 0% chance that's happening because that was a disaster. Maggie said I handled it well. I never feel like I handle those things well. She says it like she said the same thing when I tore my patella tendon. You handled it well. I'm like, didn't feel like it. Felt like my life was falling apart when I tore my patella tendon, and I felt like I wanted to, throw my computer out the window when I couldn't get the connection with everybody live, and we're live doing a show, and we had a little technical issues. But I tried to handle it my best, so hopefully it was somewhat manageable for those that did watch it live, or I tried to watch it back, or tried to listen to it again. All issues were unfixable. I tried my best to fix some of them in post, but there was only so much I could do. But again, don't worry, Big Friendly. Stay locked in. 8 a.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's when I'm live. Or ish. 8 a.m.-ish, 6 p.m.-ish. I'm going to steal that from Zach Go. Around that time is typically when I go live. Check out your boy on Instagram, where you're at right now, or on X, EJ_Stewart, or on YouTube, New Generation Media. And you may see them very soon. Not today, but you may see them very soon. So keep it locked in, Big Friendly. Big Friendly was a frequent call on Maggie and Perloff show, and one of the absolute gems when it came to the Weedos and coffee drinkers. So good to see Big Friendly as always. What does he say here? I don't know where I can see or hear Maggie, Perloff, T.O. Manny. Yeah, thank God you gave Manny his nickname back. I was a little disappointed that you gave everybody the nicknames before and you just said Manny. I'm like, wait, Manny, he's Manny Wapo, he's T.O. Manny. There's a lot of nicknames you've given him. Manny kind of hold a dollar. I don't know, you giving him a bunch of names. I was waiting, so now you fixed it. So you got his nickname in there at 411. For 411, my good friend Andrew Bogish, he does updates. I don't know how often, but he does updates on Sirius XM Radio. So if you listen to Mad Dog Radio, or maybe they have another sports channel. Forgive me, I don't have Sirius XM Radio, so I'm not 100% sure what their setup is. But you can certainly hear him on Mad Dog Radio. I know he's done updates with them. He's actually done updates, I think, with DA. I think he's done even some morning stuff. Not mostly. He's been mostly afternoon. But you can find Bogish there doing updates on Sirius. Manny Wapo, a.k.a. Manny Rodriguez. Oh, I realized this is the time of all the time, so I'm doing the lowdown on how everybody's doing. First of all, we talked about Bogish. Shout out to Bogish.
Adult toy-shaped feet.
And then you got Manny Rodriguez, a.k.a. Manny Wapo. He is, of course, the play-by-play announcer for Archbishop Steckmack, one of the best high school basketball teams in all of the country, up in Westchester, New York. They are currently in the CHSAA playoffs. I think Manny is still doing these games, I would assume. So if you want to catch Manny doing work with the play-by-play, he is a very good play-by-play guy. I've listened to him. He does Archbishop's games. They have some huge games coming up, Stepinac, some huge games. I think they're in the semifinals and finals coming up. So this is going to be weekend to lock into Manny Rodriguez. So make sure you follow him, E Rodriguez Radio. I think Andrew Bogish's, at least his X account is Andrew Bogish. I forgot what his Instagram is. I feel like his Instagram might be Drew Bogish, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. And Perloff is writing for the for Athlon. I feel like I'm doing the this is like the sad version, but you know the end of what's the movie called? Coach Carter, and they're doing like, and I'm hopeful, yes I am hopeful, but too late. Let the music and music let it take, and then they're showing like what every person did after the season ended. It's like this guy went to Sacramento State and averaged 15 points. This person became like a teacher. This person became the head of the school. He became the principal of the high school, Richmond High School. Like they do know how to do that. I feel like that's what I'm doing, giving Big Friendly update on what everybody's doing post Maggie and Perloff. This is the sad version. Like Coach Carter, they didn't win the championship, but at least they made the playoffs, and they were all going to college. It seemed like they were overall a success story. Like what happened to Infinity Sports Network was not a success story or a happy situation. But that's how I feel given the update. 411, Bogish, you can hear him on Sirius XM doing updates periodically. You can hear Manny on doing play-by-play, and I'm just waiting for that music. And it's hopeful that you'll make a way. I know it ain't easy, but that's okay. That's how I feel like right now. Apologies to those who did not want to hear my singing voice. I'm surprised, actually, I have not sung in the... Let's do this math. 74 shows so far. But here I am. There was a singing there. So Perloff, by the way, he's writing with Athlon. So you can catch his work with Athlon. He also was doing digital work with them. So he's been doing social media stuff with them, which is really cool. So make sure you follow him on social media. But he's still writing his Athlon columns. And Maggie's been pretty frequent guest on SNY. She's been doing Baseball Tonight in America, hosted by Sal Licata. Shout out to Sal Licata, formerly of WFAM. So she's been doing spots with them, which is great. Seeing Maggie talk baseball is always a fun time. So they're all doing their thing. There's stuff happening with them. So shout out to Big Friendly giving you the 411. I should get the nickname, give Bogish a different nickname. I should be the one named 411 after this. At the time I gave that comment. Shout out to Big Friendly, man. A really great person, and great person to have on the as a part of the community that is the Weedos and Coffee Drinkers. That doesn't change. The Weedos and Coffee Drinkers last forever, regardless of how long the show went and how it ended and whatever the future may be. That is something that it will always continue. Shout out to the community. Love you guys. I'm going to be getting my podcast going again, and I would love to have you as a guest if you have time. Yeah. Hit me up. DM me. I don't know if you have my email, but definitely if you have my email, my Odyssey email still works because I'm not totally fired. I'm only partially fired. I still do shows on the Fan. So my Odyssey email still works, which you should have. If not, you can DM me. Let me know when and where, and I'll try to be there, Big Friendly. Big love to you, big guy. And last thing I want to do before I get out here, man, this has been a fun show. a lot happening. Shout out to my guy Antwan Staley, who came in and did a phenomenal job talking Jets. And of course, if you want to rewind, you can rewind and hear that conversation in its full. Of course, you can watch it a little bit later on the podcast if you want to listen to it, of course, on YouTube. We got to get to what's going on with this WrestleMania build. Because I said this before, and Roman Reigns and CM Punk are 100% the story for WrestleMania. It's weird that on the TJ Jefferson and O'Shea Jackson's podcast, forgive me, I'm forgetting the name at the top of my head. I realize my memory is going to crap since, I don't know. I feel like in the last year it's gotten like considerably worse. I can remember the show Succession. That was the show I was trying to mention when I was talking about corporate mergers and those kind of things. Succession's the show I was talking about, a show that I watched for like 3 seasons. But yeah, my memory's going to crap. I feel like there are things that happen and I just can't remember names or whatever. But WrestleMania is this has been about Roman Reigns and this has been about CM Punk. They have been the major story. But these other kids are on scholarship too, as they say. And it is clear that there are plenty of other fixtures that are going to be big storylines in WrestleMania that are also trying to stake their claim and stake their spot on where they want to be on the show. And there is apparently one main event available. Like I said before, the podcast with TJ Jefferson and O'Shea Jackson Jr., they had announced via their sources that Roman and CM Punk was the night 2 main event of WrestleMania. So I kept waiting for them, and CM Punk was there. He was like, oh, you guys know that? That's news to me. All right, great, cool. That's awesome to know. And it didn't seem like they were, and I've met TJ and I've had O'Shea on the show, so they're both really cool dudes. Shout out to them. And in the show, I mean Maggie Pro, not on a New Generation Media. But no, I kind of was expecting, this will become a big air headline, or this will then, coincide with a announcement maybe later that day or in the next week or on Monday Night Raw that first announced by, O'Shea and TJ that there is going to be a WrestleMania main event 2 that is confirmed, Roman versus Punk. And it never happened. Still not happening. Every time they promote this match, they're still kind of couching like the main event of WrestleMania, but not saying what night it is and when it's going to happen. It's all very strange. Very strange to me. With that being said, though, I think we know that's going to be the night 2 main event. It's a white-hot feud. They've only had 2 segments, and they've both gone viral. The talent is through the roof. These are 2 legends in the game that are obviously still active. This is a dream match. I know they technically were in a match last year because of the triple threat, but that match honestly became a lot about Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman, and not so much about whatever was happening with Roman and Punk, because the whole issue was that Punk had issues with Rollins and Roman had issues with Rollins. And then the wise man was kind of this mystery figure about who he would be with, whether it would be Punk or whether it would be with Reigns. And it turned out, of course, he also ended up being with Rollins. So a lot of that match, the lead up and the actual match and the results of it, we're always going to remember that as a Seth Rollins night. This is a 1v1. This is going to be the main event of night 2, and we've already could have assumed that. I don't know why they're wasting time when it's already been announced. Someone, I don't know if they shouldn't have leaked it, but someone leaked it. You might as well just play it up and get the headline out of it as opposed to waiting 3-4 weeks for something to be announced that we already know is going to happen. Anyway, everybody else still wants their spot. And in theory, that means there is another spot still available for night 1 of WrestleMania for there to be a main event. Now, typically the men have been the matches that have had that spot, though we've seen the women have that spot in the past. We saw with the actual main event when it was only one night still, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair, the first ever female main event. We saw in the first of this night 1, night 2 main event thing they were doing when they were in Tampa, Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Moné, and Bianca Belair. That was on the main event. So we've seen the women get in there. We've seen a tag match. We had Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Usos as a main event match. So it hasn't always quite been just whatever the other main men's title is. So it's not just, okay, Roman and Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship on Sunday, WWE Championship, you're now the main event on the first night. That's not always how this has gone at all. In fact, we started the show last year with a championship match. It was Jey Uso versus Gunther, and then the main event was a non-title match between Rollins, Reigns, and Punk. So it's not a foregone conclusion that Randy Orton versus the winner of McIntyre and Rhodes, which we think is going to be Rhodes. Some of the early stuff from dirt sheets are saying that it's Rhodes. It's not a foregone conclusion that that's the night one main event. I would think that's the heavy favorite, but this is a free-for-all. This is a get over it when you can. Who can have the hottest feud? Who can have create the most buzz? So there's an opportunity there potentially in Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley, which would be one of the women's main event championship matches for this two-night foray that we have as WrestleMania. They turned up the heat on social media, and they certainly got a lot of buzz. But I don't know if it was buzz that they expected to go the way it went. So it starts with Rhea Ripley wins the Elimination Chamber. She's now going to face Jade Cargill, the women's champion, WWE women's champion, and of course the champion of SmackDown. Rhea now goes over to SmackDown after coming from Raw. During the match and kind of after the match, they do the social media thing. Roman tweeted something at CM Punk. Jade, starts the exchange back and forth, and it kind of began with well, whatever, like you're a second option anyway, like what's the big deal? And then they have what it seems to be a little bit of play kind of, jabbing back and forth. Then the jabbing seemed to get a little more personal when we saw this post from, let me make sure I have it right. Let me make sure I got all of them, because I see most of them. Let me make sure. Okay, this is it. Yep. So we saw this post from Jade in a response to something that was said by Rhea Ripley. So I'll move over just a little bit so you can see. So Rhea had posted a video because Jade was essentially saying that, I don't care about you. I'm not interested in this match or whatever, which seemed kayfabe. And Rhea's like, you do a lot of talking. And she posted 2 videos of Jade Cargill talking about how much she admires Rhea Ripley, how much she can't wait to get in the ring with her. So it's like, all you seem to do is talk. Because now you're saying that those videos don't exist or those videos don't matter, or she said you had a social media team that dug up those videos of me. So Rhea Ripley, again, seems like in character. All you seem to do is talk, and that's literally it. Jade Cargill says, talk? Like the hours you spend talking to creative. Then, I guess nails emoji is like the dropping tea. I don't know what that means. I'm not a woman, obviously. But like nails, minding my own business, or just being cutesy, I don't know. But, talking to creative. I thought this was kayfabe. What's going on? What do you mean talking to creative? So, okay, it's a little bit of a shot. And not something I think we knew of Rhea Ripley. We know creative loves her because, A, she's booked like someone who they love. But B, Triple H speaks glowingly about her. Like, Triple H has seen Rhea Ripley as a star since he brought her into NXT. Like, it's not a secret that he sees Rhea Ripley as one of the next... It's hard to even say next big thing. She's a big thing right now. But, hours you spent talking to creative. That seems to be veering away from promoting a match into something a little more personal. Rhea Ripley responded saying, "You're funny. That's funny. Now, how you really do be talking out of your ass because everything you say is BS. Don't spread lies on my name, you dumb B." Okay, getting a little more personal. Now, is this all fun and games? Is this still wrestling? I don't quite know. Okay. And then just let it go. All right, well, that's what happened that night. And then you think, okay, maybe that's where it's going to end. And it did not end there. It got even more personal, and other people got involved. Because then Chelsea Green posted an appreciation of Rhea Ripley, or a quote tweet of an appreciation of Rhea Ripley, where someone just posted like, "Oh, look at like Rhea's evolution from being like this one person to who she is now, this megastar." And Chelsea Green posted, and I'll put this here and I'll put down this lower third so you can read it. She wrote, Rhea is proud that you can be kind, respectful, and the most talented wrestler in the world. It's proof that you can be kind, respectful, and the most talented wrestler in the world. Which I have no idea if this was supposed to be a shot at Jade Cargill, but Jade Cargill took it as a shot because then she's like, "There's no point to even go and embarrass you on this app. You always have something to say about everything." Whoa, this is somebody that's now not even part of this feud in theory that I don't know if they were infusing themselves, but it is, convenient timing that now you want to show love to Rhea Ripley when there's question marks about whether or not this feud with Jade Cargill has veered off of the kayfabe aspect and become real. Okay, well, now there's something here. There's a beef here, and then there was a more exchange with her and Jade, and Chelsea saying, "Damn, hit dogs really do holler. Woof woof." Heart emoji. Okay, so now there's multiple people in this mix. Piper Niven then got into the mix. She responded in this, and again, this became a huge ordeal. Piper Niven, who's injured right now, but obviously is the valet and tag team partner, I guess you want to say, of Chelsea Green, says, "Who the F even said anything about you? Contrary to belief, the world doesn't actually revolve around you. No point to embarrass you on this app. Give you enough ring time and you'll do it yourself." Okay, and we've all had conversations about, how green Jade can be in the ring and where she's at in terms of being able to put on long matches, and there you're throwing out there that you can't have a long match because you suck as a wrestler. Okay, this is now appears to be veering far, far away from the typical talking junk on social media for the sake of wrestling and which is fun, and we're talking about creative and you can't wrestle for more than 5 minutes and hit dogs holler. I'm like, whoa, this has changed, and people paid attention to it. And it kind of wrapped up with this final kind of post from Rhea Ripley on Instagram, which was a story, and said, "Not having fun, not friends, learn to work, and never lie to defame someone's real human character by, quote, breaking the fourth wall." And again, does not feel kayfabe, does not feel like this is in the realm of the character Rhea Ripley and the character Jade Cargill. We're talking about breaking the fourth wall. We're talking about defaming people's names. Seems like a lot's going on here. The question I've been asking, is this a shoot? Is this a work? I have no idea. And it doesn't feel like even the people who cover this industry know exactly what is going on, because I've seen conflicting things from everybody. Even some of the reports I've read have been conflicting from the people who do the dirt sheets. This was the last kind of thing I saw, but then I saw this contradicted just a couple of minutes later when I was on social media getting ready for this show. And this was something that PW Insider was quoted on when it came to the Rhea Ripley Jade Cargill situation. I know it's a little small, so I will read this here. Jade Cargill has been criticized by a number of talent for how she rubs others the wrong way, and that when the back and forth with Rhea Ripley began, it wasn't hard for others to want to jump in and voice their opinions. They cited this wasn't the first time Cargill has upset others with how she conducted herself, and intimated that when there were reports about Cargill being hurt last year, the real reason she disappeared and spent time in PC was to let personal issues going on at the time subside. Another source tried to downplay the situation, but later admitted that they expect management would step in and seek Cargill about her relationship with the locker room. The source noted that everyone in the locker room has been happy to do whatever they need to do to get Cargill over, but that the respect that they show her does not often feel requited. They described it as Cargill coming across as, quote, insecure when she shouldn't have any reason to feel that way. So that was the report I think is kind of maybe getting the most rounds, because this is the one that's saying this isn't kind of a work. This kind of is a shoot. Like, people are not happy with Jade Cargill. I've seen some other things saying that one source suggests that this will blow over, and at the end of the day, like, WWE's really happy with the buzz that this has created. Even that source, though, I saw wherever that report was like, talking about non-kayfabe things are not what WWE would prefer and not what they would present to the talent to do. It seems to be something they've done on their own, but they don't see that there's an issue. They don't think that there will be an issue with Jade and Rhea working together for this WrestleMania match. But a lot going on there. So, first of all, I pause to say I love it, only because if there are real issues, that's not good. We want Jade Cargill to succeed in WWE because that means a better product for the fans. And I hear, and I'm just being real, because EJ will always keep it 100, I hear black woman is insecure and doesn't get along with others, and my antennas raise in a field where there are not a lot of other people like Jade Cargill in her field, I do raise, because that is a stereotype that has been presented to black women for centuries. So it does not mean that it is not true. I want to be very clear. It does not mean that that is not true and doesn't have merit. But there have been so many times where that kind of label on highly successful black women have been put, that they're difficult to work with, that they're challenging, that they're good, but they're just, they're not as appreciative, they're insecure, all those different kind of things. Seeing a lot of what I think for a lot of black women would see some triggering language in how this report was presented. Again, does not mean that it's not true, but it is something that is interesting. It makes me pause in terms of how real is this presentation of Jade Cargill. So all those things are kind of the negative aspect of this. If it's true, it's bad. If it's not true, it's really concerning that that's the kind of characterization they're making on someone who doesn't deserve that, if this all indeed is a work. Or if it's just a misunderstanding. It still feels like that's a little unfortunate, especially when they're talking about an issue from last year. Remember Jade Cargill, they wrote her off television when Naomi, attacked her. We didn't know who attacked her until we learned that last year's Elimination Chamber, when Naomi had, Jade Cargill came out and we thought she was going to attack Liv Morgan, and she went after Naomi. And what was one of the better moments, I think, for WWE last year that they had, which was ended up being a great pay-per-view. John Cena turned heel later on that night as well. This was, we thought, oh, she was out for injury, and that was why. There were some rumors that, maybe there's some issues, but it was kind of, nothing really bubbled up to us to really sink our teeth into it. This is the first thing being like, oh, there were things that maybe there were issues last year, which is why they sent her away. To have to send her away, that sounds extreme. That does not sound good. It also doesn't sound like somebody I'd maybe put a title on if the issues that happened last year only were just last year. I don't know if I'm strapping a title onto her. I know you could argue, well, at what point are you going to put a title on someone who's such a big star and a big presence? It's a great question. It wouldn't be now if those are issues that weren't resolved, and this is all true. With that being said, they have brought attention, which is why, again, apparently WWE is pretty happy with the buzz. That's been some reporting as well. And other people have said that this was a work. There have been other reports that have said I don't know if they knew this is where they were going to go, but they're working along with the storyline. Maybe it's kind of an improv thing, who knows, but that this is not like there's some personal beef, and that WWE, again, apparently does not think there'll be a problem in terms of them working this match. This is a huge match for Jade Cargill. A huge match. Because Rhea Ripley, I don't think she's the best female wrestler in terms of a worker. I think that's Io Sky. But she's up there with one of their best workers. And she's definitely their best women's talent overall. Presentation, mic work, actual in-ring ability. She has it all. She is her. No question about it. This is a big test for Jade Cargill, who has the look, the presentation, and the strength, the physical athleticism. But she is newer to wrestling, and they have brought her along slow. Her work in AEW was extremely limited. They kind of really relied on just her presence, her strength, her beauty, and just pushed that forward and saying, we're not going to try to give you 30-minute masterpieces to try to put on. For a company that is kind of hell-bent on the in-ring work being the most important thing, they weren't putting Jade Cargill in that position, which is why when she got to WWE, they initially said, you're going to the Performance Center, you're going to learn how to wrestle for, it seemed like a while. It was like 4 or 5 months, I feel like, before Cargill actually made her debut from the time she was actually signed. So this is a huge test for Jade Cargill. I think putting her with Rhea Ripley, I think there's a hope that you can kind of, the chances that there's a better match are higher because Rhea Ripley is so good in the ring. But then there's also the possibility that someone like Jade Cargill, who has been green, I don't know if she's green now, but she has been green. There's been questions about, can she put on the kind of match that would warrant a Rhea Ripley kind of feud, or will she not be able to keep up? Those are realistic things in terms of where Jade Cargill is in her career as a wrestler and where Rhea Ripley is. So part of me looks at this and I hope this is a work, because regardless of who's going to go over and who's not going to go over, whatever the case may be, if Jade Cargill is going to work out, I think she needs to make sure that she has a good match with Rhea Ripley, who has good matches with everybody. She's again a phenomenal worker. And to be fair, Jade's gotten a lot better. I thought the end of her feud with Naomi in the Extreme Rules match that they had was her best match of her career. I think that her and Tiffany Stratton towards the end of that feud just was not inspired at all. But they started to have much better matches towards the end. I actually thought the WrestleMania match, it was crazy short. But I actually thought the spots were great and they looked good. I kind of wish they would have got maybe a little bit more time. But again, it speaks to how they're trying to really kind of hide her a little bit in terms of long matches because she's still learning the business. I just don't want to start off on a bad foot where what could be a great match can't happen the way you want because you've already pissed off the person that you're working with and you can't get on the same page and personal issues got in the way. That would be unfortunate, and that would be a big dent in like the company's potential future plan for Jade Cargill, because I believe them that they want her to be a big star. They've invested a lot of time. I'm sure they've invested a lot of money. And she has everything else in terms of, besides in-ring experience, everything else to be a WWE star. She is strikingly gorgeous. She is ridiculously strong. She just is a striking person. Just her. And I've never talked to her, but I've been when I did the press junket for WrestleMania 40 that they did in Las Vegas. She was on the red carpet or the green carpet that they had. So I saw Jade Cargill, and it was striking to see someone who, you talk to Seth Rollins, you're talking to all these different men. Her and Rhea Ripley, they both were similar, where it was like, I feel like this is like another male superstar, not obviously just in terms of the stature that's being brought to me, because they were so built and so tall and so striking. When I talked to Becky Lynch, she's short. She's like an average sized woman, not she's probably 5'7" or whatever. So it's kind of striking. It's like, oh, I watch you on TV, you always seem much taller. And Becky was phenomenal. She was a super nice person, a funny interview. She's just seems like a funny character, and that's the character she plays. But these are two titans of the industry in terms of the physiques, and you want to see them battle, and we want to see this match. Jade Cargill said in those videos that Rhea posted that Jade Cargill didn't like, that this is a dream match potentially. I just don't want anything to get in the way. So if there is some kind of personal beef, I'm really hoping we can get past it, and I'm really hoping some of these rumors about, is Jade difficult to work with, is she insecure, is she not reciprocating support, I hope all those things aren't true, because Jade Cargill absolutely should be a megastar in WWE, and this potentially I think could be one of the show-stealing moments of WrestleMania if this feud is played up right. They have a launching pad. That's the good news about this, is people are going to watch on Friday. People want to see what this is going to be. People want to see a throwdown. People want to see more nasty comments being made, but it's got to be within the show. It's got to be within the entertainment. It can't be anything personal. Hopefully that is the case in what happens with this feud moving forward. Whew, that's going to do it. Night 37 in the books. Again, for those watching, streaming live on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. New Generation Media is where we're at on YouTube. Make sure you follow me on X where we're streaming live, EJ_Stewart. And make sure you're watching me and you're following me live on Instagram. If you're there on IG, follow me, Action EJ. Of course, all episodes get podcasted. So this episode, along with all the episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights, will be on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. And that's going to do it for this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. I'll be back tomorrow with day 38. We have a Knicks game. We got this throwback broadcast happening on NBC, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to get to in the morning. Whatever NFL news shakes, we'll bring it to you tomorrow. We'll see what else we get into. Again, talking to some guests, talking to some people, see if we can get them on. This has been quite a show and quite a journey, and it's going to keep going for the rest of this week. It's the last week, though, so stay locked in. It's been a lot of fun. I'll see you guys in the morning. I'm EJ. Take it easy.